Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Ruby Slippers Theater's Theater and Multiculture Perspectives vlog series. I'm Grace Chin, the General Manager of Ruby Slippers Theater, and we're very proud to have with us today Nina Lee Aquino, the current Artistic Director at Factory Theater and a Director and Dramaturge. Welcome, Nina.
Hi, I'm Nina Lee Aquino, Artistic Director of Factory Theater. So both the company and I stand on Takaranto. We're based in Toronto, covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and is also the traditional territory of many nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples.
And for our part, Ruby Slippers is on the unceded territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations out here in what is now called Vancouver, British Columbia. We're very proud to acknowledge that we are guests and settlers on this Indigenous land, and we are proud and happy to share this with Indigenous peoples, for sure. Nina, you are, I think, an extremely busy person. I have been for more than 20 years in in the theater industry. You were the artistic director at Cahoots Theater, and currently you're at Factory up until the end of the 2021-22 season, I understand. And you remain the current president of PACT.
Yeah. And was also the founding artistic director of Fujian Asian Canadian Theater Company back in 2002. Yeah, you can say like from 2002 onwards, really. I don't think I've stopped quite yet, but we'll see in 2022 of July, which is like, you know, my official kind of like I'm done at Factory, where the universe will take me next. I might get a break. Who knows? So we'll see.
You're also you have remained a very busy director as well, an award-winning director. I believe you have 3 Doras to your name for outstanding direction. And you also teach and direct at various universities. Yeah, Ryerson, York. So, you know, like I highly doubt that you're going to find yourself unbusy after.
We'll see, right? You never know, never say never, but I'm certainly open to a different kind of busy, I suppose. I don't think I've freelanced in a while. So, and again, you know, a lot of people are asking me now that, you know, the departure announcement has been official, like, you know, what is next on my horizon? I really don't have any plans, but I'm quite open. I just, you know, it just needs to be a place where I know I'm needed the most, and I can share my gifts, but also like learn new things.
Well, considering the breadth and depth of your experience, and considering as well that you've been a big champion for IPOC, BIPOC work in all of your positions, in all of the different positions that you've held in the industry. Is there any part of your lived experience of racism in this industry that you would like to share with us today, in particular as it may have impacted or informed or motivated your work?
I mean, I think it is all about that, right? I mean, the feeling of, I mean, there's kind of the direct racism, right? And then there's the invisible, like the invisible racism. And I think both have been the driving force to me being the kind of artist and who I am and what I choose to do. It's really made my mission, my calling, so to speak, and crystallized like the purpose in my place in our theater sector. And I, you know, I kind of had to kind of discover that at a young age. And that's why Fujian was born in many ways. And, you know, I didn't really experience kind of the direct explicit racism. Like, you know, when I was taking my master's at University of Toronto, and doing my paper on Asian Canadian theater, right? My professors at that time, again, most of them, I think all of them were white, you know, gave me the go signal and kind of go, well, you know, and they were honest enough to go, nobody's done this yet. So I don't know what kind of support systems to give you, but you define that and you know, so I'm like, okay, great. And I just remember kind of it all started really me going to the library, at Robarts and typing up Asian Canadian drama. And I was met with like a blinking cursor and a blank screen, right? Like if that didn't signal my invisibility, right, in terms of my fellow like creators writing stories, like that was like a really huge moment for me to realize, like, okay, so I can possibly not exist. Like I can graduate with like a fancy Boy Scout badge, like an MA in theater, and still not make it in the professional realm of theater here in Canada. So really, when I created that paper, I had to interview living, breathing Asian Canadian theater practitioners, right? Like Jean Yoon, who's like our godmother of Asian Canadian theater, Terry Watata, MJ. So I had to interview those. And really, from all my interviews with these Asian Canadian artists, like, they did acknowledge like they were like that Asian Canadian theater started when a mainstream company would pick up a play for production, like, and there was a dim sum slot, was normally called, right? If we were lucky. And then the movement would also stop when the production closes, and we'd hope and pray again for the next mainstream theater to have a dim sum slot and pick us up. So that, there was no company, there were a lot of attempts, but of course failed for various reasons. Burnout, there was just no support system. There's like self-doubt and insecurity, all of those things that feed into, that are still issues that we have today, obviously. But, all of them were saying like, we just don't have a unifying force in the community. We have amazing artists all over the place, but there's no home for us to go to. There's no momentum. There's nobody that's investing on us constantly. Again, we go by production to production, but there's, so there just needs to be that place, and it needs to be led by somebody. And I mean, when I defended my freaking paper, I didn't know that it was going to be me, but it ended up being me. But fortunately, the difference I always emphasize is that I wasn't alone. It was never going to be a one-person show here that was going to be leading the way. Like I had an incredible, support system, but incredible other Asian Canadian theater artists that believed in what I believed in. And it was just synergy, right? Like that the four of us, Leon Arias, David Yee, me, and Richard Lee, kind of banded together. And that was it. We were the core executive of Fujian Asian Canadian Theater. And, we did the research, what it is to run a theater company, did the funding, did all the legit, things. And with all of us in mind that we were creating a company for the community. It wasn't about just our work, my being a director, David being a playwright, Richard being an actor. Like it was like that. The whole dream was that we would build it, run it, and run it enough again that we can pass it on to the next generation, and that will keep going and living, as it is still now the longest standing, most successful Asian Canadian theater company in the country.
Well,
right?
David's running it, isn't he?
Yeah,
Currently,
David's now running it. Yeah, so that was the dream. And so yeah, so in terms of not finding your place in this, the Canadian theater landscape, so we just had to make our own damn place, right? And so talk about racism in the industry, like that was it. Like the fact that you the invisibility, which kind of motivated finding a place so that we weren't going to be invisible. And that kind of mandate, so I mean, if the whole library thing was my first kind of to realize it, even the specificity of what I needed to do before then, because I was a naturally trained musical theater performer since I was a kid, leading up to when I came here to Canada at 17. And so my thing was like, I was just going to be an actor. Like, I was going to switch gears and just be an actor, and I remember my first year at York University, because you get streamed, right, to when you get in second year. And I didn't make the cut in their acting conservatory. Everybody is equal in your first year, and then you choose your stream. And I wanted to be an actor. And so I transferred over to University of Guelph because screw York. I didn't make the cut, so it's fine. And so at Guelph, I was kind of lost. Like I didn't really, at that time, when you get rejected that early, right? Like you don't have the right support systems. I barely even created any mentors, like met any mentors. So you believe everything an institution tells you. No, Nina, you're not an actor. Okay, so I'm not an actor. I was way too young and gullible to actually kind of question that. But so at York, I was kind of left to kind of go like, if I'm not an actor, then what am I? And I just stumbled upon, when I was choosing my courses, like fundamentals of directing. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll take it. Like, I've never really thought of myself as a director, never really explored that, but let's do it. So I begrudgingly took the course because there was no choice. And it was like a year-long, one of those full 2-semester courses. And apparently, if you ask my professor, who Rick Knowles, who's now like a father figure to me, who's one of my lifelong mentors, like I was so quiet, I was so grumpy throughout, like not participate. I never volunteered and stuff, but he was like, but I knew you were listening. I knew. And funny enough, when he finally wrote the book Fundamentals of Directing, I was honored that he asked me to write the foreword to it, which of course I say I sucked at his class. But I just remember in our final project where no choice, all of us had to direct something. I just remember being in, my rehearsals with my 2 actors, and there was just something that clicked. There was something, it wasn't easy, but I was at ease with the medium of directing. It was joyous. It was like, and then when I presented it, I knew I presented something good, that I wasn't, in the novice, and then sure enough, Professor Knowles, calls me into his office after my presentation and says to me, like, you tell beautiful stories, right? So that's kind of the first real, like, okay, so maybe I'm not an actor anymore. And maybe this is my transition into something new, but still doubtful, still, it wasn't really until Judith Thompson, who is a professor, part of the faculty at Guelph, right? I know, like my faculty at Guelph was like one of the kick-ass faculty, like theater practitioners actually teach at Guelph. I don't know why, it's one of Guelph's best kept secrets.
So and they cheered you on.
Yeah. So Judith called me to her office and gave me a script called Mother Tongue by Betty Kwan. And says, like, listen, like I heard from Rick that there's something about you, there's something special about you. I want, for your final project, when you go into your 4th year, I want you to direct this play. And I'm like, I'm not a director, Judith. And also, P.S., I'm like one of 2 Asians in our drama department. How am I going to cast this? It's a 3-hander. Everybody has to be like, anyways. And she's like, you'll find a way. I will help you with Rick. We'll be your producers. But if you do this, like, this will be the first, like, Brown production to be ever done at the University of Guelph. So it's going to be pretty important. And then the second one is, listen, like, you can be an actor. You can still pursue being an actor. You're a lovely actor. You're a strong actor, but you will be one of the many thousands of artists trying to knock on that door. But if you hone this gift and you work hard and you train, you are putting yourself in a position of power that instead of knocking on that door, you can be that door to that wall. And so you see, so it made a lot of, like, that, the ability to, the confirmation that maybe I can be a really kick-ass director, and why I need to be a kick-ass director kind of made sense. Now, I did make the mistake of going back to York to apply for my MFA in directing, because now I know I have a purpose, and I still got rejected.
Sorry, York, you missed your chance.
I still got rejected. So I did do my master's at U of T. And again, they're all for a reason, right? And then coupled with my library fiasco, right? Of like, where the hell am I? Where's my place? Like, so all of those kind of intersected. Like, you just knowing who I am, where I need to be, and what I need to do, and kind of that thing of like being that door to that wall, right? And then Fujian happens, the door to that wall, right? And ever since then, it's been so clear to me what I've needed to do for our communities and for the communities that I represent against, already what we know, like racism has been around forever and a day. Has it only been amplified now in the last couple of months, in the last year, because of the pandemic of George Floyd? Yeah, but for me, it's like, oh, finally, like companies are catching up. Like this isn't news. That's why theater companies like Native Earth, like Obsidian, Aluna Theater, like all these, like why, like they were formed, to be not just like a voice for their, specific communities, but also to be a safe space for these artists to be themselves and to grow their identities as they're growing their art, right? And that they didn't need to go into another theater company and be stripped down of whoever they are so that they can like be neutral, which that doesn't really exist. That's a myth.
It doesn't anyway.
No,
Neutrality is whiteness.
no.
The
Oh
default
yeah,
is whiteness. Yeah.
right. And
Let's
so,
let's call it.
exactly.
That actually does bring us to my second question, which is about the intersectionality of racism and perhaps, shall we say, sexism.
Oh yeah.
Let me get you started on that.
I mean, listen, like, one can only look like, not like, let's take Factory, like, it's well and all for me to start my own indie company and I can make my own rules and blah blah blah. And again, the independent, like that's why I love, like I will always be an indie theater artist through and through regardless, but the reality is, when you play the game, when you go, into like venue companies and you're considered like mid-size, like Factory, like Tarragon, like those kind of players, there was a period of time, I feel like before, because Wayne was the second, like I was the first female artistic director of color of a mid-sized company, of a venue mid-sized company. I was the only female AD of color in the entire country for a couple of years. And then Wayne happened, and then Marjorie, and that like, do you know what I mean? So it wasn't, but you could imagine in that the kinds of rooms that I would be in, right? Where it's always aging white men, right? Where it's always, kind of the ingenue, like the exciting young men, but all white. And by virtue of who I am, what I look like, I'm often the shortest as well. I look really young because of my genes, right? Like you can imagine how people either like patted me on the shoulder or on the head, good job, Aquino, like, this condescending, like, and still to this day, like I still feel like, my success, it's like I have to start from zero every single time, like especially if I go into a bigger institution. And it's like my three doors, does it really matter to like another theater company that's being run? Like, no, it doesn't matter if I have 10 of them. Like it's just like there's just a different standard. It's a double standard when it comes to BIPOC artists, especially if you're a woman, a brown woman. It's just like all the insecurities that people feel about us in our leadership. I'm bossy, I'm bitchy, I am always angry, like all of those things that when you put it into qualities of a white man, it's ambition, right? Versus aggressive. It's like innovation versus like, what the hell is she doing with Factory and blah, blah, blah. Like, she's turning it into another blah, blah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like the amount of even coming into Factory, right? with the turmoil like that was already that I was met going into an institution, a beloved institution founded by, you know, a very beloved theater artist, right? Like I don't think that the public was ready for an AD that looked like me, you know. And so any changes that I was doing, anything that, you know, I was experimenting on, any move that I was making that I just wanted to try, it was just like, you know, bam, like and it was just met with so much resistance, you know. And it took a while. It took like three in my 10 years now, like going on to 10 years at Factory, I'd say like the first three were like utterly horrible, you know. There was nothing, you know. And again, don't forget, like my coming in, it wasn't celebrated. It wasn't like balloons in the parade and like, yay, Nina. Like, because of the boycott, I was coming in into such a delicate like minefield of people's feelings and stuff, right? And how they felt about Factory. Like it was one of the hardest things, you know. And so it took 3 seasons really for me to kind of shut the noise, right? And go past the doubters and the naysayers and just really listen to my heart, listening to my gut instincts, and just have the courage to be who I was and am as a leader, you know. So when we launched with the naked season onwards, like that's it. Like I don't care what, like we're already at the bottom. There's nothing like, you know, there's nothing else for me to lose. So be it, you know, and just slowly worked our way up, you know. And at least now I can say like, at least I got a lovely departure, and grateful for everybody, you know, that, you know, emailed me and texted me. And I haven't really gone through all of the social media tributes. But I'm like, oh, thank God. Like at least at least, you know, if I didn't have a proper hello and welcome, at least, you know, I was determined to get a decent farewell, you know, because that was a lot and that was hard. And it's just harder. And I know it's just, it was 10 times harder because of just who I am and what I look like, you know. I was a surprise. Nobody would have thunk it. I think even the journalists couldn't, they didn't know what to do with me. I just came out from nowhere. Like I was just an AD of Cahoots, which again, even though it was a long running, you know, respectable theater company, it's not a venue. It's definitely not a mid-size. And all of a sudden, bam, it's like Nina Lee Aquino and Nigel Sean Williams. And then now it's just Nina Lee Aquino. It's like, what, you know? So I, yeah, that took a lot of groundbreaking. That took a lot, like talk about being a door. But, you know, often as my mentor would say, like, you know, when you're the first one out the gate, you're also the first one to get your teeth kicked in, right? So that's, you know, so, you know, welcoming Wayne, for example, like, yeah, you know, and then Marjorie the next time, and now Mike Payette at Tarragon Theater, like so many amazing leaders now are BIPOC leaders now are coming in, and like, and again, getting these amazing opportunities to be in positions of power. And I'm so happy that the reactions are very different now from 10 years ago.
What steps do you think need to be taken, you know, to start the process of fundamentally dismantling systemic racism within our industry? Like I know, you know, it's a two-part responsibility. Some of it is certainly, I believe, on the part of the producers. As artists as well, you've touched on a few things that we can do. Can you perhaps name like one of your one top thing that a producing company can do, and one top thing that as an artist, as a creative, we can do to start this dismantling?
I think, you know, it's funny because I'm currently working on kind of like a manifesto of goodness document at PACT, right? Where we talk about, you know, how to just be good people, you know, because good people means good artists, right? And when you're a good artist, then, you know, so listen, I think that, you know, what it boils down to for me is the giving up of the space or the stepping aside. Like when you identify a story, like who is going to tell this story? is it going to be you? Are you the right person? Or are you the person that's supposed to be ushering the people that is actually meant to, So that means for yourself as an artistic director, as a director, like decentering, right? Like it's being able to kind of go, no, the universe does not always have to revolve around me, and it is now my turn to kind of go, no, this particular play should be developed and directed by so and so people, right? So and so person, that it's not me. Which links to, like, just be honest, just be transparent and authentic. Like when you take on a project, as a director, again, or as an artistic director, when you choose your director, when you choose the plays, like, just to be transparent about like why this particular piece, right? And to really determine realistically, like, are we the right company to do this? Can we properly support the artists, the kinds of artists that are needed to make this play's vision come to life, right? And that also means choosing the right artists. Are there enough mechanisms in place that will make the artists involved feel safe and creatively free, right? So, but that also means, the other side of the spectrum is that if you or the director you chose, like, are honest with your agenda, because every director should, and your priorities. If you're directing a white play with white actors, that's cool too. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I love white people. Like, I'm not, where I get issue is when you have white folks who are trying to kind of brown up their productions, but again, and where they get into trouble is because they've only, like, it's only surface, right? It's only skin deep. And yet your creative team is all white, you are white. And so automatically, no matter what you do, I don't care how many consultants and what kind of research you're doing, your perspective will still come from a white place. Your gaze is still gonna, now, unless that is part of the vision of really confronting your white gaze with a blah, 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 like, do you know what I mean? Like, again, and that means really crystallizing that agenda and that vision and communicating that with your actors. Again, that requires transparency and authenticity, right? And so, yeah, like, if you want to kind of just be honest and genuine, like, I don't think we're saying like all white directors should be, having BIPOC this and, but like, for me, I'm only requesting, like, just be true to your, don't go on touting like that you're like this ally and that from now on, and put up a black square, when if you look at your track record, all you've been doing is white stuff. Like, just be honest and kind of go, if you're a good human being and all you've done is, that's cool too. I'd rather have that than, pay lip service and say you're doing this and all you're doing is just harming folks, right? If you're really not capable, you don't have the proper training, you don't have, and you don't have the right collaborators. And so I've always been on the side of like, let's be honest, like, and authentic, real, like, geography as well, because sometimes your company could be located in a place where it's not possible, and so all you have been doing for your community are these places that are for the community that's like 99% white. That's cool, do it. I'd rather you do that really well than import a whole bunch of brown people and you don't know what to do with them. And again, that's where you get into trouble. You're creating spaces for them and you have no sense of how to like give them the support that they need.
But thank you so much. I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. Thank you.
And really look forward to what you're up to next. Well, first off, like to complete the season with a bang. Yeah. And what you come up with next. Thank you so much for not only speaking with us, but for all the work that you've done.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, this has been fun. So thank you. And yeah, like, I'll be around, that's for sure. Let's see what's next.
We're counting on it.
For sure.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.